I wonder if you have heard this kind of music before. This music is taken from the signs that are in the text itself. They have been thought punctuation for 1,000 years, but have more recently, in the last 100 years, by Suzanne Hayek-Ventura, been interpreted in quite a new way. It's an old song, but it's also a very new song. Psalm 96 is part of a series of psalms in Book 4 that celebrate the reign of the Lord. They come after the failure of the Davidic monarchy in Book 3. And this one proclaims, as we have seen before, that the Lord is King. All creation shouts for joy at this proclamation. Now there's a green statement. For the King comes to judge the world in righteousness and the people in his faithfulness. But how does this work? Surely it's not by what we might think of as a theocracy that destroys the very guest that it has created. Equally, it should not be by an oligarchy of entrenched self-interest. Rather, it seems it is by a delegation to qualified, anointed rulers, trained at the right hand of power. These are rulers who have learned to become like their king. And we hope that, like him, they have learned that indefinable quality of mercy. Let us learn to grow such rulers. So we've come to our last session. It's going to be a bit technical, like sessions 2 and 3, because we'll talk about the music in the text. And then it will be personal again, like sessions 4 and 5, because you have prepared some things that we can listen to and see together. Well, I can't put a musical score in front of you without singing it, so let's see what happens. Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halak ba'atzat resha'im uvderek hatayim lo amad uvmoshav le'etzim lo yashav. Well, there's Psalm 1, verse 1. And I have sung a few of the others as well. There's another example later from the book of Samuel, David's lament over the death of his son Absalom. It's quite remarkable how the music fits the text. There's a huge amount to study here, and it has just begun. These signs have been in the text, as I mentioned, for 1,000 years and have been considered punctuation. But if any system designer ever came to me with such a notation and said this is punctuation, I would tell him to go back and reduce the number of signs by a factor of 4. It's very clearly not punctuation. It's obviously something else. No human in his right mind would design that sort of system for punctuation. These also are signs that are mentioned in Psalm 34:1 when David feigned madness. The madness is the same word for the signs, the ta'am, the te'amim. And in Psalm 34 verse 9 he says, "Taste ta'am and see that the Lord is good." Well, you know, there may be surprises in this text yet for us to learn. There are 2 deciphering keys that Suzanne Hayek-Ventura noticed. The signs are slightly different for the poetry from the prose. These are not particularly descriptive words, but in this case, poetry refers to the 3 books, Job, the speeches of Job specifically, Psalms, and Proverbs. These 3 books are traditionally known as the books of truth, since their first letters, Aleph, Mem, Taf, spell truth. you can see that there are signs below the letters and signs above the letters. There's a more detailed introduction to these signs opposite Psalm 120 in my book, and just listing off the names of them is not going to be very helpful. But notice there are 7 below the notes, suggesting that these 7 define a modal scale. And that's what Haik-Ventura has done. For the Psalms, it's a modal scale. For the prose books, there are 8 notes below 8 signs below the text, and these map to basically a C major scale with an augmented 5th on G sharp. The signs above the text, Haik-Ventura maps to ornaments. I'll give you an example of this shortly. Here we are looking at 2 Samuel 19:1. We begin on the default tonic, which is an E. So if we were looking at this, Vayirgaz HaMelech, and greatly moved was the king. Vayir, there we are. And then we come, as the big circle shows, to a syllable that has a change of note. And in this case, we go up a 5th on this munach, and then we'll notice there's a circle above the letter, which indicates an ornament, and there we're going to dip on the revia. So, Vayirgaz HaMelech. Now we will continue the second line. We continue on the note that is established, the B, and then down a major 6th to the D, tavir. And it looks as if the tavir is underneath the yod, but it isn't. There are too many signs in the textual implementation of the font to get the tavir under the right note. But if you look in a handwritten text using the Max Lateris edition of the Hebrew Bible, you'll find that it's pretty clear that the 2 syllables of Ya'al are split. We then will go up a minor 3rd to F natural on the Mercha, which is circled in the middle there. We'll rise to the G sharp, Tifka, and come to rest on the Atanach. I've mentioned the Atanach before as being a dividing point for a verb. Effectively, it is the subdominant. And notice that the upward movement is just like the meaning of the text. He is going up to the upper chamber above the gate, the very gate where he first looked on the armies going out. In this passage, we now come back to the gate, and he goes up again and weeps. If we continue on the 3rd line, we continue on the subdominant and rise immediately to the B, another munach, and continue. We dip on the revia as we did before. Suzanne Haik-Ventura never varies in her application of the rules for deciphering which she discovered. It's really, really remarkable, the kind of music that she has come up with. Quite foreign to us in some ways. Then we return to the B, resolving the revia, and rise to the C on Beni, on the 4th line down now, and continue to the last syllable of Absalom, and observe the kadma, a 2-note ornament up a tone, then back to C, then we're back to the B again with the syllable Beni, which comes down again to the munach, observing the two-note ornament down on Abshalom, the Zakef Katan, on that third syllable. And then on the fifth line, we return to the tonic. You see the siluk under the mi. And then up a minor sixth to observe the mapach. Note how the shape of this line exactly repeats the shape of the prior line with kadma munach zakef. Finally, from the B down a minor third to G sharp, and then down a minor third to F natural, and finally home on the tonic. Well, I can put it all together for you on the next slide.
ויגז המלך ויעל על עליית השער ויבכה וקום המלאכתו בני אבשלום בני אבשלום מיתן מותי אני תחתיך אבשלום בני.
If you're operating this course alone, then here's an exercise. But if you have a whole class of people who are going to present their own work from the Psalms, then you may not have time for this exercise. It's a good exercise, though. You can look at the new song and the old song and see what you can find out about it. And here's the final homework. Keep on reading. Remember that we are called to the healing of the nations, to be peacemakers, and we have these leaves of the tree of life that we can work with. As peacemakers, may we indeed be called children of God in our actions. Behold how they love one another. And if they fight with one another, let it be fairly, so that we can learn together. Bye, and enjoy your psalm reading.